What if I told you that the legendary warrior Mulan may have actually existed, and that her story was just one of many? Forget the animated songs and the Hollywood action scenes. The truth is more thrilling and more dangerous. Buried deep in China's ancient past is a real tradition of women who led armies, defied emperors, and were erased from history. Imagine discovering that one of China's most famous heroines fought not for romance or glory, but for survival, family, and honor. And that her legacy was deliberately rewritten by the ruling elite, century after century. Today, we dig into the forgotten past, into a story censored, silenced, and reshaped. Because behind every myth, there's a truth someone didn't want you to know. And if Mulan really lived, what else have we missed? Welcome to a journey into one of history's most fascinating and controversial figures, Mulan. You know her name, you've heard the tale. But is the story we've been told accurate? Or is it a carefully tailored legend, shaped by changing dynasties, ideologies, and politics over centuries? In this video, we're going beyond the myth. We're diving into ancient ballads, archaeological discoveries, military records, and imperial archives. We'll uncover the roots of Mulan's legend, explore the real warrior women who walked the same path, and expose why their stories were hidden for so long. Why does the story of Mulan still resonate across the world today? And what does it say about power, gender, and memory? Let's find out. Let's start with the source. The earliest known version of Mulan's story appears in the Ballad of Mulan, likely composed between the 4th and 6th century AD. He saddles the horse and I mount it. He rides 10,000 miles to war. At the camp, no one knows Mulan is a woman. There's no mention of her wielding a sword with a dragon sidekick. Instead, we get a powerful stoic tale of loyalty, sacrifice, and endurance. Mulan goes to war not to seek glory, but to save her father from conscription. After years of fighting, she returns home, declines any official rewards, and reveals her identity only after the fact. Her comrades are stunned, not because she tricked them, but because they never suspected she was a woman. But here's the twist. Unlike the Western idea of strong female characters, Mulan isn't framed as exceptional. She's just human, brave, filial, determined. She exists in a world that allowed for that possibility. So what kind of world was that? On the surface, ancient Chinese society, especially during the Northern Wei dynasty, when the poem may have originated, was deeply patriarchal. Confucian ideals shaped every aspect of life. Women were expected to be submissive, obedient, and confined to the domestic sphere. But, and it's a big but, this wasn't universally enforced. The Northern Wei, ruled by a nomadic people known as the Xianbei, had very different customs. Women could own property, wield weapons, and ride horses. They weren't invisible. In fact, some scholars believe that Mulan's story reflects this Xianbei influence, a culture where gender roles weren't quite so rigid. The image of a woman soldier wouldn't have been as shocking then as it might be today. And this opens the door to a bigger idea. Mulan wasn't a fluke. She may have represented a broader reality. On the surface, ancient Chinese society, especially during the Northern Wei dynasty, when the poem may have originated, was deeply patriarchal. Confucian ideals shaped every aspect of life. Women were expected to be submissive, obedient, and confined to the domestic sphere. But, and it's a big but, this wasn't universally enforced. The Northern Wei, ruled by a nomadic people known as the Xianbei, had very different customs. Women could own property, wield weapons, and ride horses. They weren't invisible. In fact, some scholars believe that Mulan's story reflects this Xianbei influence, a culture where gender roles weren't quite so rigid. The image of a woman soldier wouldn't have been as shocking then as it might be today. And this opens the door to a bigger idea. Mulan wasn't a fluke. She may have represented a broader reality. So who were the real warrior women of ancient China? 1. Fu Hao, Shang Dynasty general. Buried with over 100 weapons, Fu Hao was a queen, priestess, and military commander. Oracle bone inscriptions show that she led campaigns and crushed enemies. This isn't legend. This is archaeology. 2. Princess Pingyang, Tang Dynasty. When her father, Li Yuan, launched a rebellion that would establish the Tang Dynasty, Pingyang raised an army of her own, the Army of the Lady. She commanded troops, coordinated attacks, and was celebrated as a hero, until later dynasties downplayed her role. 3. Qin Liang Yu, Ming Dynasty. A poet, a warrior, and a general who defended China against internal rebellion and foreign invasion. She was officially recognized by the emperor, and even issued her own military proclamations. So, Mulan wasn't alone. She stood in a long line of women who defied the expected and picked up the sword. What's more fascinating? Why have their stories been buried? Why disguise herself as a man? In the Mulan story, the disguise is necessary for survival, but on a deeper level, it's a statement, a challenge to the idea that only men can serve, fight, or lead. And this wasn't just literary flair. Throughout Chinese history, there are countless tales, some fictionalized, some historical, of women cross-dressing to enter male-dominated spaces. In some dynasties, these stories were tolerated, even celebrated. In others, they were condemned or erased. But they all ask the same unspoken question. If a woman can fight as well as a man, what else have we been wrong about? Which warrior woman do you think would have thrived most in today's world? Mulan's story didn't stay the same over time. In each era, she was reshaped to reflect the values of the moment. Tang Dynasty versions emphasized loyalty to the emperor. Ming and Qing versions stressed her virtue and modesty, reminding readers she returned to domestic life afterward. 20th century revolutionaries saw her as a feminist and nationalist icon. And yes, Disney turned her into a plucky, rebellious heroine for global audiences. What does this tell us? That legends are mirrors. Mulan is less about one woman and more about how a society defines bravery, duty, and gender. So, was she real? There's no definitive proof of a historical Mulan. No ancient grave with her name. No war records matching her deeds. But that doesn't mean she didn't exist. Oral history, poetry, and legend often preserve truths that records don't. What's more, the fact that her story resonated so widely and lasted so long suggests she represented something people recognized. Whether real or fictional, she carried the hopes, dreams, and struggles of countless women through history. And in that way, she was real enough. So now you know, Mulan was more than a warrior. She was a symbol, a cultural chameleon whose story continues to evolve. She forces us to rethink what we know about ancient China, about gender, and about the power of myth to challenge the status quo. If you found this video eye-opening, go ahead and like it. It tells the algorithm you want more untold stories like this one. Subscribe for deep dives into the forgotten corners of history. And if there's a warrior woman you think deserves more attention, tell us her name. You might just inspire our next episode. Thanks for watching, and remember, history isn't just about kings and battles. Sometimes it's about the ones who had to hide in plain sight just to be seen.